Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast with Kimberly Brown. We are back, and today we are going to talk about being redirected. Redirection is not rejection. And I have a quote I want to share with you today. Rejection is merely a redirection, a course correction to your destiny. This quote is by Bryant McGill. When we get rejected in the workplace, it is something that can be so hard to process. I always tell my clients that we spend 40 plus hours a week at work. In my last corporate job, 40 hours was a light week. So when you spend so much time in one place, it's really easy to attach so much of that experience to your identity, to who you are. So when you're rejected, it feels personal. Even though someone's feelings or feedback sometimes is not even about you, rejection can still really hit home for you. So I want you to think about how sometimes this is really rejection. Whether you're working to set yourself up for a salary increase and maybe it didn't happen, or you're consistently being evaluated by your peers, by your managers, by your company. Rejection, yes, it can feel personal, but I don't want you to attach this to who you are. So I want to tell you a little story about when I've been rejected. I think in the workplace, being a career and leadership development expert, people assume that, oh my gosh, you've gotten every job you've gone for. You've done all the things all the time and never had an issue. But y'all, that is a lie. I have 110% been rejected. And I'll tell you about one of the biggest ones of my life that really it messed me up for a little bit. So when I was in higher education, my goal was to become a director of career services. That is all I wanted. And I knew that probably since my first year being in a career development role at a university. I was like, how can I become a director of career services? I went as far as breaking down the careers of director of career services at several universities, understanding their background, their skills, their experiences, to ensure that I set myself up for that. I understood that I needed experience counseling. So I work with alumni. I work with current students. I work with alternative students. I understood I needed to understand employer relations and development, employer outreach. I knew that I needed to understand marketing, operations, assessment measures. I needed interdepartmental collaborations, all of the things, y'all, just making sure y'all understand the level of research that I did. So when it was finally time, when I had enough experience, generally people were looking for 7 to 10 years of experience. I was at that point, and I was like, it's finally my time to interview for director of career services jobs. And when I tell you, I came up multiple times as number 2, and I was number 2, not number 1 like Beyonce. And I was devastated. And in one search in particular, I knew that I had the leg up. I had relationships, I had institutional knowledge. I knew that this was exactly where it would be perfect for me to enter as a director of career services. So if you're in higher education, you know that the interview processes are so long. There's multiple presentations, there's 6, 7 rounds of interviews. It was a lot. So I had made it. I knew that I was top 2. And I knew that I was going to get that call. I had even envisioned the trench coat I was going to buy. I could see myself getting off the subway on the stop and walking up to the university, saying hello to the security guard and going to my office. I saw it. And as you can imagine, this podcast today is about rejection. I found out that I was not selected for that role. When I tell you I was crushed, I rarely ever cried about losing jobs. I believe what is for me will be for me, even in the workplace. But I was so crushed. Again, I saw myself. I already had picked out the trench, the boots, all of it. So when I found out that I didn't get it, I just didn't understand. Like, if I couldn't get this job where I was so aligned, like, what job would I be able to get? So, and I took some time out. I was definitely upset. It was so hard to walk back into the job I currently had at that time. But oddly enough, guess what happened? Like a week later, they called me back and said, hey, our number 1 said that they are no longer able to accept the offer. We really liked you. If we had 2 jobs, we would have hired you. Would you still be interested? I was like, okay, come on, God, we got it. Like, this is the job for me. Sometimes, things just don't happen the way they're supposed to happen. And I was like, of course I would take it. So I had to come back in, meet the team, but we talked salary, we talked all the things, but we didn't get it in writing. And this is why I tell all my clients, don't you dare resign from a job unless you get it in writing. And we were talking about coming back in. Things got a little weird. They didn't reply to the email, and then it took a little time for them to get back. And it had been 2 weeks of back and forth and meetings and cancellations, and they finally came back again and said, hey, we're going in a different direction. And they ultimately decided to bring in an interim director and then ultimately director who had been knocked out of the search much earlier on. Again, I was devastated, even more than the first time, because I was like, oh, this is meant for me. Like, I'm going to get this job. And I didn't. But fast forward to a few months later, I definitely cooled out on my searching. I needed a little bit of time to recoup and relax and get back to myself and build my confidence to go back out. I ended up going through a job search process that changed the trajectory of my career. And I went from finding out about the opportunity to having an offer in my hands in less than 2 weeks, and dramatically increased my salary. That rejection was 110% redirection. And that's what I really want to talk about with you today. Like, when you're rejected, it's so easy for this to hit your confidence and make it so you show up differently in the workplace. So for me, I definitely, when I walked back into my current office, when I got rejected from that job, not 1 time, but 2 times, it definitely took me a moment to get back. I was upset. I wasn't supposed to be there. Everybody knows that feeling when you've been rejected for a job and you walk back in like, this is not where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be in the new place and y'all don't even know what I was going to have over there. It's going to hit your confidence, but it's important to think about, how is this redirecting you? What is the direction that you can put yourself toward? In my book, Next Move, Best Move, Transitioning into a Career You'll Love, the whole book is about putting you into a 2-year career strategy, putting together a strategy to help you make your next move really and truly your best move. And when things don't land, you still have to go back to that strategy and decide, is this where I want to go? How do I get back on that horse? Or how can I update things and redirect myself to where I'd like to be? I have an episode of my podcast, and episode 23 is Susie Moore. And she says, confidence comes from not being afraid of a no or an alternative outcome. So in fact, going for a job or asking someone out, getting that no and knowing you can still overcome is where your confidence comes from. So I don't want you to think about this rejection as it's over. Definitely feel your feelings, right? But don't let the feelings sit there and ruminate and impact who you are every single day. That alternate outcome can be better than your intended outcome. So whether your redirection came from being rejected from a job, from your peers, a bad performance appraisal, whatever it is, your disappointment is valid, but it does not mean you're not deserving of whatever that next move is. Do not let your next career move or your leader's thoughts or whatever it is impact where you know that you're supposed to go next. So with that, one more time, remember that rejection can be redirection. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Your Next Move podcast.
And when I thought about what is my goal here, it is I want people to feel like they are empowered to participate in the future of work, that they wouldn't be a victim of it.